Okay, right, so I'll crack on. I didn't realize we were starting. I do apologize. So my kids always wonder why I do this. It's a very bizarre thing to stand up on stage and talk to people. It's quite nerve-wracking. It's quite daunting. So I always try and get them a photo of every single talk that I do. So if you don't mind, if you could all sort of squeeze together. And what I'll do is I'll try and get, maybe on the count of 3, we can say works on my machine, okay? So 1, 2, 3. Did that take? Beautiful. Oh, I'm shaking for some reason. So many, many years ago, I was sat in a square in a beautiful European city. It was a beautiful square. It was a wonderful evening. It was absolutely fabulous. Really hot weather, and I was waiting for my friends to turn up at the conference. I was having a few drinks, watching the world go by. There were kids playing football in the square. There were couples going on romantic walks. There were people enjoying their dinner. There were families eating ice cream. It was just magical. And as I sat there drinking more and more alcohol, I realized that I was surrounded by a group of very large, very loud, very leather-clad bikers, and I was sat in the middle of this group of people. But the more I drank, the more I thought, you know what, I'm going to say hello to this group of people. So I turned around and I tapped one on the shoulder, and he span round and he stood up. Now, I'm quite tall, but he was at least 12 foot tall. He weighed at least 600 pounds. He was the size of a small development team. He looked at me, and he looked right through me, and he said, "What?" And I said, in my deepest, manliest voice, "I'd like to buy you all a drink, please." It went down well. I was accepted into the group. I had the right skills at the right time. Those skills being the ability to drink and some money to pay for them. It turned out that this guy was called Tigo, and he was at a biker convention with the rest of his biker friends. And they were just telling me wonderful stories about love and loss and epic road trips and antisocial behavior and all sorts of wonderful things. It was an amazing night. And then, in the corner of the square, appeared a sight that made my stomach churn. It was a rival biker group. Tigo and all of his friends stood up to face the enemy. I realized at that point that what we had to do now was the work that comes with being part of this group. We had to stand up and confront and possibly fight the opposition for a right to drink beer in this town, in this square, in this bar. It was at this moment that I realized I no longer wanted to be part of this group of people. And so I turned to Tigo and I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, "Tigo, I'm going to go to the toilet and I'll be back." And I did the only thing a middle-aged IT geek from England could do. I walked into the bar. I walked past the bar. I walked past the toilet. And I went out of the back door and I ran back to my hotel. Crying. I was in the right place at the right time, but I didn't have the skills to do the job. Now, the reason I tell this story, and it is true, most of it, the reason I tell this story is I see the same thing happening in our industry. We have people who are seemingly hireable, seemingly relevant, but they just cannot do the job. I'm going to introduce you to a gentleman called Derek. He's fictional, but he is based on somebody I did once interview. He's awesome at everything, truly awesome. He has an ISTQB, a CBB pass, an APB, MIT, ATM, CSM, DIT, rat, pig, cat, tick, hip, pat, and frat. He has everything. He is utterly amazing on paper. Thank you. He gets the job, every single job he goes for. But the problem is he's overlooked. He doesn't stay long. He never gets the career progression that he wants. He quits his job often. He tried contracting, thinking that it was permanent work that was ruining his kudos. But he never got his contracts renewed. Now, Derek is seemingly relevant. He has all the right skills on paper, but he doesn't seem capable of doing the work, the real work, the hard work that comes from building agile software development teams. He's not alone. At a conference, I had somebody tell me, "Stop killing my creativity. Agile means that I, as a developer, get to choose what features to build next, irrelevant of what the product owners or the customers want." Nonsense. Give me 6 months and I'll deliver wow. I had someone tell me this once. Just give me 6 months, a team of 6 people will go off and we'll just build wow. And I was like, wow, what? Not many companies can afford to do that. Dev is mine. A test manager spoke to me about this once. He's taken over Dev, and he was going to fight Agile to the death. To the death. How do you think that Agile transition went? Not very well. Agile sucks. A tester at a conference once told me Agile is rubbish. I hate it. A tester in the same team from the same company told me how they absolutely loved it. They were thriving in the same environment. And how many people have ever, please tell me you've never said this. It's not in my job description, because that is the antithesis of building good, strong, agile teams. Yet it's rife. Testing is not something I do. I'm a developer. Or I don't do code because I'm a tester. Or that's a product owner's job. Okay? It doesn't lend itself to good teams. Quitting is really trendy. Have you noticed this? Get yourself onto LinkedIn and almost every article is about how to quit. Quit with dignity. Quit. Walk away. What to do if somebody quits. Why are we all quitting everything? It's because we're facing something called bad work. And there was a meme going through the whole industry of refusing to do bad work. But bad work exists everywhere. Now, I'm not going to say do immoral, illegal, dangerous work, of course, but bad work is often the gateway to good, effective businesses. Okay, so if it's not skills, then what is it? If it's not all about this, it's about behaviors, okay? And Agile is questioning the world around us. You learn how to move quickly and easily. This is my definition of Agile towards your purpose. What's your purpose? To ship software. Everyone always says, well, surely a tester's purpose is to stop software going out the door. No. Your job is to ship software. If it's rubbish, of course, pull the cord. But your job is to ship software. What's stopping you shipping your software? These are the problems that you need to work on. And how can you move forward with this? The only way to do this is to address behaviors, what people do, what they say, how they make people feel, how they say the things that they say. These are behaviors. Agile is not the pursuit of labels. Okay? We seem obsessed with trying to do all of these so we can say we've got that, done it, we've achieved it. It's none of this. And we all know that the world is made up of protons, neutrons, electrons, and morons. So leave the agile cheese to the morons while we focus on behaviors. So when I was scaling my development team, I had to grow 100% year on year on year on year. And it was very difficult because not a lot of talented people, despite everybody's assumptions, exist in our community. We all know that we have a shortage of very talented people. So what did we try to do? So to avoid people like Derek, we tried to focus on behaviors. But how do you work out what behaviors make sense? So we did what all managers would do. We looked at our team and we deconstructed the best performing people. And we worked out not their personality traits, not their timekeeping, none of this. We focused on behaviors. And we came up with 10 behaviors. And not everybody demonstrates all 10 of these. If you ever meet anybody who demonstrates all 10 of these, then you are looking at a unicorn, okay? But people demonstrate these skills in abundance in certain 1 or 2 of them, maybe 5 of them, maybe 6 or 7 of them, maybe more or less, okay? But I'm here today to explain the 10 behaviors that I found particularly useful when building a very successful Agile development team. So, are you ready? Yes, let's do this. So, number 1, show your passion with a positive fashion. And yes, it rhymes. Yes. Not all of them rhyme, and if you can help me with the ones that don't rhyme, I would very much appreciate that. Very, very, very typical at most testing conferences is to find people who are visibly passionate about how crap testing is, and about how they hate their job, and about how they're stuck working for an organization that they don't want to work for. I suggest you do the opposite, and you become visibly passionate in a positive fashion about the very positive things that are happening. People gravitate towards people who are positive about the work. They can see it changing, they can look in the future and say, we are going to be different. And that's what effective employees do. They always focus on the positive, and they're visibly passionate about it. So number 2, be aggressively open-minded. I don't normally use the word aggressive at all. I don't really like it, but I stole it. And has anyone heard of a guy called Paul Graham? So he's an investor, a founder. He's a very, very clever chap. His website, paulgraham.com, definitely worth checking out. But he said, it seems to me that beliefs about the future are so rarely correct that they usually aren't worth the extra rigidity they impose. And the best strategy is simply to be aggressively open-minded. Instead of trying to point yourself in the right direction, admit you have no idea what the right direction is, and try to be instead super sensitive to the winds of change. And that's what effective employees do. Closed-minded people always have their mouths open. So we try to hire people who are open-minded about a different way of working. Now, when we were hiring, we were 45 minutes from London, and we were trying to attract people from London to come and work in Basingstoke. Has anyone ever been to Basingstoke? Where is it? Exactly, okay? It's often known in all sorts of many different terms of which aren't very positive. So we were trying to attract people from London. It's very difficult to do. We couldn't afford London salaries. We couldn't afford to attract them with bonuses and all the other stuff. But what did we do? We shone a light on all the positive things that we were doing, and we hired people who wanted to experience Agile and had never done it. It's a risky strategy. But it works because they're open-minded to new ways of doing it, and they bring that open-mindedness into the team, a very effective personal trait. Draw a frame around yourself. So draw a frame, but don't restrain. Yes. Another rhyming one. So this is all about job descriptions. Job descriptions are nothing but words. They're just a model to represent what somebody should do. When was the last time you referred to a job description before you made a decision at work? You don't do it. But what we look for is we look for people who say, you know what, I'm a tester, I'm a scrum master, I'm a product owner, I'm a developer, but the problems in all businesses are usually between roles. They're between the things that people do. Okay, and this is what we look for, is people that can spot those problems and say, you know what, I'm a developer, but there's a problem here with test. I'm going to work with the tester to see if we can fix it. Okay, we didn't bother with any of this software developers in test. I don't agree with that model particularly. Happy to have a big, honest discussion later on about that if you wish. But the way that we solved it was to get the developers to write the automated tests. They're the people who are good at writing code, and the testers are good at testing software. We married the two. Some of the people have bled across into each one of those because they've ignored their job description. Okay? Is everyone happy? Yes, thumbs up. Get smart, become company smart right from the start. And I think you can tell an effective presentation sometimes with the number of phones and people taking pictures. You don't have to take a picture of every single slide, trust me. You can have them afterwards if you wish, okay? If you come and have a chat to me. I don't want you to waste all your battery power and all that sort of stuff. But if you're going to tweet it, of course, please take a picture and say, you know, Rob made it rhyme, company smart right from the start. Well, what does this mean? What does company smart mean? Company smart means getting behind the values. You heard Tom talk about that in a session before, if you were in that. Getting behind the mission, the vision, the values, the way the business organizes. Not fighting it. If you're fighting it, you don't agree with it, you're not on board with the vision or the mission of the business, I suggest you maybe try to find a different business. Okay, because all businesses succeed when everybody in the organization is behind what we are trying to achieve. And that's hard to articulate as a manager. It's hard to communicate. But you should always, as a manager, be looking for people in agile teams who are going to get behind that from the start. It also means about working out who's useful and who's not. And good people go into an organization and they'll find the people who are going to help them succeed. And they will often ignore or try and work around the people who are going to hinder their growth. Not all businesses are full of 100% people that are all pushing in the same direction. Okay? And with a wider awareness, you get surprised less often. So if you know the product strategy, you know who's responsible for sales, you know some of the customers who are onboarding, you know some of the challenges that your professional services departments might have. If you work with your support managers and you get knowledge, you build a wider awareness. And with a wider awareness, you get surprised a lot less often. And this is great for agile software development. So who's the customer? Who do you work for? Who buys the service? Who uses the software? Because the people who use the software aren't necessarily the people who buy it. Okay, and this is what effective employees do, is they work relentlessly for the customer. They don't do it for the business, they do it for the customer. And what values do they have, and what do they expect from you? Now, number 6, improve the process. This is what effective employees do. By the bucket load, they are always relentlessly improving the process, but only from a customer's perspective. Has anyone here ever worked in a department that's been improved relentlessly and it's made things worse? Exactly. So, at this point, there's a little bit of audience interaction. I can see the fear and the color draining from people. Don't worry, I just need 14 volunteers. Have we got any lucky people that want to come up on stage? All you have to do is you have to hold up a little sign, and then I dismiss you from the stage as and when I feel like it. 14 volunteers, come on, up on the stage. Don't be shy about it. There you go, number 1, thank you. And please stand in the order that it says on the back of the card. There's a number on it, so number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, thank you very much. Number 7, 8, 9, 10, we need 4 more people. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So if you move this way a little bit, because we've got the unicorn in the way. So we've got tier 1, tier 2 waiting, tier 3 awaiting dev, in, test, accept, in, test, fail, waiting, deployed, live, awaiting, close, and closed. Now, does anyone know what this represents? It's a customer case pipeline. So a customer raises an issue, a bug, a case, whatever you want to call it. And this is what it looked like at New Voice Media when I joined. Okay, so you imagine you staple yourself to a customer case. It's nice language, people can resonate with this. A customer case comes in and we go to tier 1. Tier 1 acts like a reception tier. They just take the call and they pass it to tier 2, and then tier 2 do some waiting, and then it goes to tier 3, are really the technical people, the people you really should have on tier 1 answering the call first time. Hey, they have not got enough information, so the case goes backwards and forwards forever, waiting dev, and then dev do some stuff, and in test, he's got it the wrong way around, but that's cool. In test accepted, in test failed, back to dev, and this is a process that customer cases go through until eventually, finally, at last, we can close the case. Now, who suffers in that ridiculous journey? The customer. Okay, so here's what we did. We got rid of tier 1, so thank you very much for your help. Appreciate you, thank you. We got rid of tier 2, we got rid of tier 2 waiting. We kept tier 3, and we actually renamed it tier 1, basically. Awaiting dev, in dev, no test, because dev and test are the same thing, okay? You don't need a separate test department. No accepted, no failed, it's all just part of the same thing. No waiting deployment. We just deployed. Live. Awaiting close, none of that. Sorry, thank you for your help, and we did have closed. Now, if you win nothing. But who wins in this situation? Everybody and the customer, exactly. So the customer does not care what happens when they raise a case. All they care is that at the other end of this journey, they get their case dealt with efficiently. You can deal with it tier 1 if everybody's trained. You can do 90% of the cases and calls. If it needs dev and test are the same. They're not separate functions. They're the same activities almost. Then we can deploy it because we do CI. We're doing continuous delivery and all the other buzzwords and stuff if you're doing Agile as I see it. And it's in live, and then we can close it, okay? And this is what effective employees do. Now, the management didn't do this. It was the employees themselves that did this. We sat down and asked them, what's wrong with the process? And they told us. And then we said, fix it. And they fixed it. Okay, so effective employees know exactly what they're doing. They just need the right constraints and the right environment to succeed. So thank you very much. Could you give my volunteers a nice round of applause? Thank you. Okay, so we're nearing the end. The good thing about top 10 lists is you know when you're near to the end of the presentation, which is good. How long do I have left? Okay, so this is a really simple way of doing process improvement. It comes from John Seddon. If you're not familiar with John Seddon's work, Vanguard, very, very interesting company, doing some really good systems thinking. Number 1 is observe the process. Number 2 is fix the process. And then number 3 is bring in IT. Now, we all work in IT, and we all know that the first choice for most people to do is to bring in IT. And we can always provide a solution. Of course we can. You know, we're always going to provide a solution, but it never really fixes the problem because nobody really ever does the work to understand the process. It's a very effective way of talking to executives and managers about improving processes. So, number 7, do what you say you will. If you say you're going to do it, do it. This is what effective employees do. So if you're going to do the definition of done, do it. No excuses. Okay? If you're going to give people feedback as a manager, do it. There's no excuse. Integrity is super important, especially in today's day and age where you're never more than 1 or 2 connections away from somebody on Zing or LinkedIn or any of those systems. Has anyone heard of the 7 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon, is it? That we're all no more than 5 or 6 steps away from knowing Kevin Bacon. Okay? And I did it myself once and I was 3 steps away, which was pretty cool. So, effective employees do what they say they're going to do. This is important, okay? Really, really important one. And then become uber great and learn how to communicate. I've missed a calling in hip-hop for sure. Okay, so communicate well. This is probably the one out of all of the 10 that I focus most on. Communication skills is the difference between success and failure. I call it a superpower in the world of business, because those that are succeeding are those that can listen, they can communicate, they can write well, they can hold a meeting, they can facilitate, and they can do all of these things that are all communication skills. So understanding nonverbal, that's a real superpower, but all communication has a purpose, an audience, and a context. The sooner you know about your purpose, audience, and context, and the fewer of those you have, the more effective you are at communicating. Okay? Add skills. So skill plus skill plus skill equals value. So has anyone heard of a guy called Scott Adams? He's the creator of Dilbert. Okay, and he wrote a really good book called How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. And this was a really good quote from it. If you think extraordinary talent and a maniacal pursuit of excellence are necessary for success, I say that's just one approach and probably the hardest. When it comes to skills, quantity often beats quality. Now, if you're going to be a brain surgeon, you might not want to listen to that advice. But if you want to work in software development and test and the world that's changing around us, then this is very good advice. I like to use the T-shaped metaphor. So you become really good at one core skill, but across the top, you become good at a whole host of other stuff: marketing, communications, support, sales, you name it. There's a whole world of different things out there. So testing plus support plus technical writing is a good skill to have. Testing plus coding plus teaching, amazing. The world opens up when you can do those three things. Testing and management, you get it, anything. Okay? If you want to move to a different country, then being able to speak the language in that country is obviously a good skill to have. And then finally, number 10, be brave. So effective employees are very, very brave. They're not afraid to challenge the norms or the status quo. They're not afraid to try new ways of working. But I will say, if you are going to be really brave, then please try to learn how to communicate, because there's bravery, there's stupidity, and there's offending people, okay? And people that are brave, sometimes you have to spend the next 6 months clearing up their actions because they've alienated the entire business. So be brave, but do it in a way that is diplomatic. Challenge everything. So the opposite of bravery is not cowardice, but it's conformity. Super important. If we don't challenge things, we are conforming to the way that they are. And so when I meet those angry, bitter, evilly twisted testers at conferences that hate software testing, the question is, what are you doing about it? And often it is nothing other than being visibly passionate in a very negative way. So Robert Anthony, I would encourage you to think about this, and if there's something happening that you don't want to conform to, then it's your opportunity to be brave. So there's 10 behaviors. Be visibly passionate, be aggressively open-minded, draw a frame around yourself, become company smart, learn who your customers are, improve the process, do what you say you will, communicate well, add skills, and be brave. And these are the 10 behaviors that I think if you have a nice mix of these in any team, you will have a very, very effective software development team doing Agile. I've been ushered over to the side to point. Brilliant. It's not staged at all, is it? And with that, I just want to call out this. I want to do Saving Linear. If you don't know, Christopher Nordstrom. Thank you. So a good friend of mine, Christopher Nordstrom, his daughter has been diagnosed with something quite horrible, and he's trying to raise money and save her life. It's a very good cause. Please do have a look at Saving Linear. If you're interested in anything more about me, my name's Rob Lambert. I'm on Twitter, Rob_Lambert. I run Cultivated Management, a management agile consultancy, and you can find tons of stuff on my website. And I used to be the social tester. A few people didn't know that, but I was thesocialtester.com as well. Still loads of stuff up there. Now, any questions? No longer a tester, no. But, oh, apparently so. So is this the microphone of goodness? So I'll hand this out. I'm going to injure somebody, surely, if I throw this.
Thanks. Does it work? Yeah. Which of the behaviors you have, the 10 that you listed, which do you have and which one don't you have?
Great work, yeah. Okay, so visibly passionate, of course. You cannot build a successful Agile team across 2 different continents if you do not have visible passion for what you're trying to achieve. Aggressively open-minded, I like to think I am very open-minded. Draw a frame around myself. I've never, ever felt constrained to be any role other than me. Hopefully added value. Become company smart. I struggle with that one sometimes. You know, certainly some companies have values that aren't lived. You can get behind the value, but you might not get behind the behaviors of the people living those values. Become company smart. Of course, one of the first things I try to do in all organizations is work out who's useful, who's helpful, what are we trying to achieve, what are the goals, the vision. And the mission, improve the process. Yeah, I'm visibly passionate about improving processes, but when it comes down to the detail, I'm kind of like, you know what, I could probably do it, but I like to encourage the team to do it. So in terms of actually going through the motions of stuff, sometimes I maybe need to up my skills on that. Do what I say will? Yeah, mostly. There are occasions when I might not follow that one. Communicate well? Yes, hopefully. I do run a communications course and a Zero to Keynote course as well. Adding skills, I do struggle with this. So I add lots of skills, but I add probably far too many, and I don't go deep enough on any one of those. So my year this year is about picking one or two, going as deep as I can, and then hopefully extending that. And then be brave. I sometimes struggle with this, You're in a room full of executives and they're all saying you're an idiot, and it takes a lot of guts sometimes to be brave in those situations. So I'm working on that. Really great question. I've never had that question before. Any more questions? Have we got time for any more?
3 more minutes.
3 more minutes, okay. Any more questions? Oh, we got one over there. I might throw this one actually, so you ready? Oh, that's teamwork.
Yeah, you talked about the little buzzword bingo in recruitment and Vitas you're getting sent. When just looking at your list and stupidly performing this list and checking for these characteristics, you might actually collect some people having a narcissistic personality disorder, and they might look perfectly fine like this. And also not just narcissists, but some other weird personalities. Especially when I consider aggressively open-minded, but the same way being brave. It's sometimes a contradiction, especially a good QA might say to a manager or to you, this is a horrible idea because I know I have experienced this, or I can imagine this, or I'm really good at my job, I can tell you. And then you say, oh, you're really just a shut mind, I will fire you. It sometimes sounds a little bit contradictory.
They all actually contradict each other almost in any situation. So there are times when some of them aren't relevant and some are. The thing is, in those situations, if you have a manager who's closing people down because they're not being open-minded or whatever, then you have a problem. And you have a problem with somebody. And you'll never, ever weed everybody out during the interview process. So the interview process is always about behaviors. We ask them questions around when you have exhibited these things. And we do all sorts of stuff for developers with code. You get interviewed when we were doing it with 6 people. So you get 6 people's opinions of you. And if any one of those say no. And then you get 3-month probation. And frankly, if you don't work out, unfortunately, some tough decisions occasionally need to be made. But you're right. I mean, you run the chance of having a team full of narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths. That's humans, we all exhibit those sort of tendencies sometimes. It comes down to management. And if you get this right and you have a sort of matrix of behaviors that you expect people to do, a good manager is able to say, that's not good behavior. What you're doing is not effective. We want you to change, and then give you the tools to help you change. And if you can't, then that's where the feedback models come in. So yeah, it's entirely possible that some of these aren't positive at all. In fact, for every superpower, there's always a weakness, and it's usually 1 or 2 of these. Yeah.
Okay, that was a more elaborate answer. The thing is, if you just present it like this, it sounds a little bit undifferentiated. And,
hence the reason I encourage people to come to the talk. And there is a free book. So if you go to cultivatemanagement.com/10, TEN, you can download the free book where I go into a lot more detail about each one of these as well. But you're right. If you just see that, it's all about ego, isn't it? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Any more questions? No more questions, I've been told. So thank you very much. Thank you.